Noah's Ark is one of the most well-known stories in the Bible, and this video deals with one of the most controversial aspects of the story. The problem is that science and just plain logic and common sense dictate that pairs of all the animals in the world could not fit on any ark built by man. While science says that the biblical story, as written, could not have happened, this video also presents a unique religious solution explaining how all of the animals could have fit on Noah's Ark. Whether you believe in the literal account in the Bible or think that the story is just a parable, virtually everyone accepts that it tells a story that is intended to convey at least three important moral lessons. The first lesson is that God hates evil. The second lesson is that evil will be punished. The third lesson is that the true believers who obey the will of God will be rewarded. Before we get into the specific problem of too many animals, there are two other ways to understand the story of Noah's Ark. One of the options is that the story is a complete fabrication. This could be true, but there is no way to know for sure, and therefore this option is not discussed in this video. Another possibility is that the story is not to be taken literally, and the basic story was thus inspired by other more ancient stories and events. It's of course very common for writers to take liberties with historical events to make the story more dramatic and or help make the points that they want to make. This option is very possible and thus will be briefly reviewed in this video. For example, if you wanted to tell a story about the destruction of the world by an environmental event, the logical choice would simply be by flood, because floods are now, and in the past, the greatest killers of humans. Specifically, excavations along the Tigris and Euphrates rivers have led archaeologists and other scientists to conclude that a number of serious floods occurred there between 4000 BC and 2000 BC. Now, various biblical experts have estimated that Noah's flood was supposed to have occurred sometime between about 2000 BC and 4350 BC. These religious estimates are thus within the range of serious floods that actually occurred around the Holy Land at the time of Noah. There were also many stories of massive floods that predated the writing of the Bible and Noah, and these could have easily been adapted and modified by the writers of Genesis. For example, the story of Noah and the flood is very similar to the flood story contained in the Epic of Gilgamesh, which was composed about 2000 BC. While there are many estimates concerning when the earliest version of the book of Genesis was written, many modern experts estimate it was written down about 600 BC, and this is well after the Epic of Gilgamesh was recorded. There has also been a lot of research around the Black Sea that has led some scientists to theorize that a massive flood occurred in a wide region around the Black Sea due to climatic and or geological events. This theory postulates that a great flood resulted from the rapid water level rise in the Black Sea as the last ice age tapered off about 5600 BC. It is theorized that water from melting ice caps overwhelmed the Mediterranean Sea, breaking through the Bosphorus Strait to the Black Sea with tremendous force and flooding more than 60,000 square miles of land. It would be too time-consuming here to go over all the reasons why the literal story of Noah's Ark is scientifically and logically impossible. Besides, the impossibility of the Ark story is not new. There are many articles that deal with it and why it's impossible. For example, you can check out a good summary of many of the reasons why it's impossible from the National Center for Science Education. Another good example is the YouTube video entitled, "Is Noah's Ark Theoretically Possible?" Unveiled. In this video, I will give just one example of why the literal biblical story of Noah's Ark is impossible. And as mentioned before, it's the problem of too many animals. For example, there are 6,400 different species of mammals. There are also about 15,200 bird species, 10,700 reptile species, and 8,200 amphibian species. This gives a total of 40,500 animals. The number of animals on the ark was even greater, because the Bible, of course, says that one male and female pair of every unclean animal will be taken on the ark. This puts the total number of animals up to 81,000. The Bible also says that 7 pairs of clean animals must also be taken onto the ark. It's not completely clear which animals were considered clean, but this, in any case, would put the total well over 81,000 animals. Species such as spiders and insects equal another 5,600,000. Now, these are not included in the overall total because they are very small. However, a worldwide flood would have also wiped them out, so they would have had to be also collected and put on the ark too. Can you imagine the difficulty of trying to collect over 5 million insects and make sure you got a male and female of each one? Plants would have also died if covered by water for up to a year, so plants would also have to have been on board. Now, the total species of plants equals about 390,800. This diagram shows that all the people and animals were on board the ark for not just 40 days and nights, but for about an entire year. Using the numbers in the Bible for the size of the ark, there would have been a total of 101,000 square feet on the 3 decks of the ark. Therefore, the available space for each animal would be only 15 square inches. This available space calculation doesn't even include the 7 pairs of clean animals, insects, plants, Noah's family, and the necessary food and supplies for an entire year. The minimum space requirements for an animal varies greatly depending on which animal it is, but let me give you 2 examples. A medium-sized animal like a young cow requires a minimum of 1,188 square inches of floor space. A small animal like a chicken takes at least 96 square inches of space. Now, there is no possible way a boat could have been large enough to carry even a single representative of all of these animals and plants. In addition, it would not have been possible for the 8 humans supposedly on board to provide all of the food, adequate living environments, and care needed to sustain such an incredibly large and diverse population. However, for the believers in the literal wording of the Bible, there is an exception to this seeming impossibility. This exception is based on a famous quote attributed to Jesus. With men, this is impossible, but with God, all things are possible. Now, since God specifically sets the dimensions of the ark, it wouldn't make sense for God to just make the ark bigger to accommodate all the animals. Also, to leave any animals off the ark would also contradict the wording of the Bible. However, there would be no biblical contradiction if God simply made all the animals much smaller than their normal size. And after the flood, God could simply make all the animals normal size again. Just because the Bible doesn't mention that God made all the animals smaller doesn't mean that he didn't do it. Now, this is the kind of reasoning that should make sense to believers in the literal wording of the Bible. Thanks for watching, and even if you don't accept the final explanation in this video, I hope you found it at least interesting.